Welcome to Bat Therapy, exploring your favorite comic book characters through the lens of clinical psychology. Be a fly on the wall or a bat in the cave, listening in on a friendship built out of a love for talking Batman, comics, and the everyday struggle to achieve mental health and happiness. We're your hosts, clinical psychologist Dr. Amelia Brown and comic enthusiast and nerd aficionado Keeden Hopkins. This podcast is about providing education and understanding, and it's not a replacement for mental health treatment or support. If you're needing help, go to bat-therapy.com for resources.
So, today, or I guess whenever you're listening to this, this is actually we've decided our last episode of season 1 of our podcast. Woo!
We made it a full season.
A full season. Yay!
I know. I'm super excited. I
know.
I get excited every time we come in to record. I get excited every time I wake up and there's a new episode out. Like I think that I might be this podcast's biggest fan, but
there's nothing wrong with
willing to hear from all of you if you think you're a bigger fan than me.
There you go. There you go. And have no fear. Season 2 is fast approaching. If there is a pause, it'll only be like 1 or 2 weeks as we kind of catch up on some stuff and get editing going. So there might be a tiny little gap, but if there is one, it's going to be just a week or two. So have no fear. Season 2 is quick approaching. And we're doing it a little bit different, but we think you guys will like it. We're really excited.
Yes, very excited. We're going to do some different things. We're going to explore something a little bit stranger. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. And like Amelia said, we are not going to be gone for long. This is not George R. Martin. We're coming back. You won't have to wait. Yes. Speaking of, I saw him.
So, okay, pause, flag on the play, hold on. Let's introduce today's episode, which is Keeden Goes to Comic-Con.
I went to Comic-Con, y'all. I went to San Diego Comic-Con, and I'm in North Carolina, and so it was a long ways away. I was shocked at how big it was. It was super awesome. I had a lot of fun. I definitely plugged our podcast while we're out there. Those of you listening that went to San Diego Comic-Con, you might have even seen our super cool, super nerdy Bat Therapy business cards.
Yeah.
Gave out all of them. I was happy. I was like, yeah.
Yes.
Podcast plug.
There we go. Yes, so we put Keeden to work, but he also had some fun. So today we're going to just talk about Keeden's experience at Comic-Con and throw in some fun kind of psychology knowledge wherever it fits related to Comic-Con and all things nerd. So I'm assuming that's where you saw George R. Martin.
I did, yes. He was on the panel. There was a panel there for the new Game of Thrones series, House of the Dragon.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, he was there. I'm not really excited about the show, but I was super excited to see George R. Martin.
That's fair. Yeah. So Keeden, I guess just starting off, like what did it feel like being there? What was just your general impression?
It was interesting because the thing is, I'm one of those people that tends to overthink everything, and so going into it, I was really afraid that, wow, now that I'm going to San Diego Comic-Con, will I not be excited about any other cons anymore? Because this is the biggest, most epic one. San Diego International is like, I was really scared.
You were worried that you turn into those people that like live in or near New York City, and then they're like, oh, nowhere else is really a city.
Right. Yeah, I don't want to be that person where it's like, oh yeah, I lived in New York, so now nothing else counts. And then stick my nose up in the air. I went to San Diego Comic-Con, and your little puny home con means nothing. Like, I don't want to be that person, right?
Sure, yeah.
And so yeah, going into it, I was super stoked, but at the same time, I was a little bit hesitant. And lately, I've been really freaked out going into crowds in public areas due to certain things going on in this country that apparently we have no control of.
Yeah.
I was a little bit a little bit scared going into it, just because being out in public like that, like you just never know what's gonna happen. It was the longest time I'd been away from my 2-year-old, and so it was a lot of back and forth. But at the same time, I was super duper stoked.
Awesome. Yeah. So now that you've been to San Diego Comic-Con, do you think you're going to be one of those snooty people?
I don't think I'll be one of those snooty people, but I do have a hard time not bringing it up in conversation already. Like somebody would say, "Oh, did you hear about da da da?" And I was like, "Yes, I did. Actually, they did something on it at San Diego Comic-Con. I was there a couple weeks ago." Like I still find myself definitely still being like, "Guess what? Ask me where I was 2 weeks ago. Ask me. I dare you. Just ask me where I was 2 weeks ago. I was at San Diego Comic-Con. I was at the whole thing. I was there. I was there. I was in the press box. It was amazing. Like I have been having a hard time just not.
I mean, to be fair to you, it has only been a few weeks, so
It has.
Let's say a year goes by. If you're still doing that, then maybe we'll have a little conversation.
Yes. It was funny because I had never flown to the West Coast before, and so we had 2 layovers on our flight because we went from Greenville to Charlotte, then from Charlotte to Dallas. And
Oof.
when I got off the plane in Dallas, I just happened to check the weather. It was 110 degrees.
Yep.
With a heat index of 120.
Oh, they had it worse than us. We've been having it real bad.
I know. The only thing I can say is I bet Dallas, the people of Dallas, wish that their football team was as hot as their weather.
Wow, we're just gonna shit on all the different cities today.
No, we're not. We're not. I bet the city of Dallas is a wonderful place. Football team is. I mean, I'm a Panthers fan.
I was about to say,
much.
Keeden, do you want to admit who you root for?
Listen, okay, so this is a podcast about psychology. So let me just say, when it comes to my football team, I deal with that by saying that no one can out trash my team than me. Right? Like if someone's gonna trash my team, they're not gonna trash my team better than I can. I know my team. I've been there. Like I'm a real fan, and as much as I love as much as I love my team, I'm never going to be the person that lets someone else come up with wittier trash talk. And
that's fair. All right.
That's what I've got to say. So
all right.
Cowboys fans out there, nothing but love, but if you love your team, you wouldn't let me be the only one trash talking them. That's my logic.
There you go. All right. So Dish Keeden, what were some of the celebrities that you saw? Who were your favorite people to meet or to see?
So I got a chance to meet Norman Reedus from The Walking Dead. First thing I ever saw him in was Blade Trinity. And then I saw him in The Boondock Saints.
Yes, naturally.
Yeah, and now, of course, everyone knows him as Daryl from The Walking Dead. We went in for, it was like a press conference they were doing after their panel, and Colleen was in there doing photography, and then I happened to come in for the Nets panel, and he was in there, and I made a beeline for him. And you could tell that a lot of the other people in there were used to celebrities. I wasn't, and I didn't care. And so I went straight up to him, and I was like, "Man, please take a picture with you." He said, "Yeah, sure, make it fast." And so me and Colleen jumped in, and I took a selfie really quick. And so that was awesome. And then I also met Terry Crews, aka the Old Spice guy. Well, one of the Old Spice guys. Definitely the most muscular of the Old Spice guys. And that one was super awesome. And it was so funny because I really was like a complete nerd about it. Because he came in and sat down, and everyone else is just taking pictures. And I'm just standing still and just looking straight at him like, "Oh my God, it's Terry Crews. I cannot believe it. He's right there in front of me." oh my God. And he looks over at me and he like sees me. And he's like, hey man, it's gonna, like, he's looking at
Are
me
you
saying that,
okay?
right. That's what he's looking at me. He's like, it's gonna be all right, man. And of course, and right after that, he made a point to like, hey, him. Like, he made a point to like come over and we took a picture together because
Nice.
he saw how much I was pretty much losing it at seeing him.
Yeah.
And so those were my closest celebrity encounters.
Nice.
But as far as other celebrities, so that one thing about San Diego Comic-Con is if you make all the panels that you go to, it's going to be sensory overload when it comes to celebrities because I mean, they're all just there.
Yeah.
First, I think one of the big ones, I saw Keanu Reeves. I was about
Nice.
3 feet away from him. He was super cool. He was super chill. He was there promoting his comic book called Berserker. And while he was there at another panel, he just happened to be like, "Oh, by the way, here's the trailer for John Wick 4." And so, yeah, that's what they do. They just hit you with stuff like that. It's crazy. So I saw him. I saw Patrick Stewart.
Oh, I hate you so much. You don't even like Star Trek. Get out of here.
I don't, but I like X-Men.
Nah.
And he was Professor X. So there's that. He was. The thing that's funny about him is all of the characters he normally plays outside of like a handful of movies, he's always this super nice person that you're like, man, I wouldn't mind meeting him. Patrick Stewart's even nicer than the characters he portrays. Like, he's the nicest person. He's so appreciative of the Star Trek fan base, and like he was super happy to just be there. And so that was really cool getting to see him. Got a chance to see Zachary Levi.
Nice.
Don't know if, did you ever watch Chuck?
I did. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, it was I was always a huge Chuck fan, so I was super excited to see him. He was there promoting Shazam, Fury of the Gods, and Lucy Liu was there. So she's in the new Shazam movie, and I got to see her. And for those of you that aren't aware, her and I used to date for a while, at least in my dreams. She was in Charlie's Angels, and I was just her boyfriend. I don't know. We dated for a while, and so it was really good to catch up with her and see her again.
So you were mentioning something that like actually surprises me. How many? I'm just gonna say nerds. How many nerds come together for things like San Diego Comic-Con? So I was actually reading up on a bunch of stuff. Because there are psychologists who go to Comic-Con and actually are on panels at Comic-Con and look and study cosplay and just different kind of nerd factions and all this stuff. And one of them was talking about just how introverted a lot of people tend to be that might go to these things. And you were talking about the sensory overload. And that's my concern about like a really big con like this one, where, yeah, I could just see the sensory overload being just so overwhelming. So how was that with just all the different stuff going on?
So for me, it was fun because I've always tended to be a little bit more okay with just jumping in things and talking to people. But you could tell there were a lot of people there that are like, I'm only here because it's San Diego Comic-Con. If this were anything else, I'd get it to go. Like, you could definitely tell these people were diehard fans and some of them were just like, I don't like this, but I do love Keanu Reeves, and so yeah, and so it was one of those things where I looked at it and I could tell there were some people there that were just like, I'm taking a step out into the deep end, but only because it is my lifelong dream.
Yeah, that's super interesting because, I mean, one of the things that I talk about so much in treatment when it comes to things like anxiety, where that tends to be one of the more common places where you can get like sensory overload. It's not the only thing, but that's so interesting because a lot of times when it comes to treatment, you're trying to get people to do the very thing that their brains are telling them. No, don't do that. Like anxiety will be like, no, don't go into the huge crowds of people. It's going to be terrible.
Yes.
Why would you do that? And so you shrink further and further away. And the treatment is ignore what your brain is screaming and
Yes.
do it anyway. And no one's going to do that unless it's something like you're talking about, where you're not going to do it unless it's something that you really care about. It's something you're really passionate about, you're really interested in. Just like you said, if this was anything else, I'd order it to go. But
Yes.
because this is Keanu Reeves, or because it's Shazam, or because it's whatever, I'm doing the thing and I'm putting myself out there. So that's actually really cool.
Yes. And it made me think about it because even when I was on the way to the con, I'm not the biggest fan of flying.
Oh, you've
It
mentioned that
just
before. Yeah.
yeah, it just kind of freaks me out. Like if I'm dreaming and I'm Superman, that's different because it's like, yeah, what's a speed of height to me?
I know. I
Superman,
mean, if you
right?
fall, you just dent whatever was beneath you.
Sorry, Earth, you're gonna have to get cracked today, right? But I do. I'm not the craziest about flying, but I do appreciate how convenient it is,
Mm.
right? Like so in 8 hours, I went from North Carolina to California. Any other time, if I had driven, it would have taken several days.
So long.
Right. Several days, several nights in the hotel. So I appreciate the convenience of flying, but it made me think like, wow, I was proud of myself for getting on all of these flights to just get where I wanted to go. But there are a lot of people out there that are like, I really just want to stay home
Mm-hmm.
with my book, and
Mm-hmm.
I want to be here with my cat, and I pay for the good DoorDash monthly so I don't have to leave. And it was really cool just seeing everyone there. And I mean,
mm.
everyone's at Comic Con because I don't know when this shift happened, but Comic Con went from being something that was only like comic books and
Yeah.
board games, and it went from that to being a pop culture phenomenon. And I was doing some digging. I was talking to another reporter, a reporter that was there when we were in the press line, and I asked him, I said, how many times you been to San Diego Comic Con? He told me he had been around about 8 times. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know how I would go to 8 different San Diego Comic Cons. But I asked him when the shift happened that it went from a bunch of comic book fans getting together to
Yeah.
just a bunch of fans of entertainment getting together.
Mm-hmm.
He said it was Twilight. He said Twilight was when he
Oh.
saw the giant shift.
Oh, that's sad.
It was interesting. It was interesting.
It's not the
And
highest
yeah,
quality writing. But you know, it don't always need the highest quality of whatever to that's so interesting. Yeah, okay, that kind of lines up with how I feel like childhood went, cuz I mean, we knew of each other in pre-Twilight.
yes.
We hung out post-Twilight, but we were in different pre-Twilight groups that had kind of the quiet nerddom to them. But yeah, like I remember growing up and okay, you were nerdy, but you didn't really talk about it with people unless you happened to come upon someone who had a shared nerdiness, and then you ended up talking to each other till like 2 a.m. in the morning.
Right.
But nowadays it's a common conversation to have.
Yeah, like when I was in high school, I didn't tell someone that I've seen every episode of Batman the Animated Series a dozen times. Like you don't just say it. You might say I read comic books, and you hope they didn't hear it because it's just like, oh boy, they're about to stereotype me. Like but now nerds are the cool kids.
Yeah, it's weird.
Nerds are the cool. It is weird, and unfortunately, I feel like whenever there's a kind of shift like that, and I don't even know if I'm wording it right, it I feel like people's heads get too big because even
Mm,
now we see things in nerddom like lots of cyberbullying and lots of
mm-hmm.
gatekeeping and just
Mm-hmm.
a lot of really bad things. And I know that comes with all fan bases, but I think that it's tough for me to see it when I remember what it used to be like being a nerd,
Mm. Yeah, and I don't
right?
know how much of that is the growth like you're talking about, how much of it is social media and the web, and there's uh, they study this too, what being online does, and the anonymity that you have. People will sometimes step outside of themselves and maybe talk more cruelly than they're going to do face to face with someone. I don't know how much that anonymity of the online world has to do with it. It is kind of sad though, because the online world also connects more people, so there's more
Yes.
ability to have representation, share more stories. But there has been, I agree that there's been this weird fight against it. And actually, I don't know if I can self proclaim myself as a Trekkie, because true Trekkies know way more about Star Trek than I do. But
Okay, I'm so glad you said that. So, what makes you think that you are not a true Trekkie? You like Star Trek, don't you?
so a Trekkie
Uh-oh.
is a person who can tell you the episode that Captain Kirk landed on X planet and this alien came. And at least back in the day, Trekkies like knew their stuff. And when I think of a Trekkie, I think of someone who like who knows all the Star Trek knowledge. I don't retain knowledge like that, but I I grew up watching Star Trek Next Generation, then Deep Space Nine and Voyager and Enterprise and all that with my family, and now I do it with my husband because, sure, I found one out there for myself. so
Okay. I
so
want
so
you to
what?
I want you to say something to me. I want you to say I am a Trekkie.
I am a Trekkie.
Yes, you are. See, and that's what I'm talking about. There's like levels to it. Like, oh, you're not a real fan unless you can. And I'm
Mhm.
like, no, that's not true. If you like something, then you can be a part of that group. And I think that's what I was talking about. Like it's one of
Fair,
these things.
fair.
Yeah. Like,
This is a common thread for me, that people have to convince me that I actually know certain things. So this doesn't surprise me. So okay, I'll say I'm a Trekkie. So okay, let's take Star Trek. Let's get back on track. This isn't about analyzing me, okay?
ha, the tables have turned.
Ah! So let's take Star Trek. Literally has been bending societal norms since it started. I don't know if it was the first or one of the first interracial kisses that we had on
It was
television.
the very first
Was
one.
it the very first? Okay.
Hmm.
And that's just one thing. I mean, you have all of these interplays and looking at societal things and really stretching the limits. And yet, people got mad that Captain Janeway was a woman.
Yeah.
People get mad about the diversity, or people now are getting mad about how, quote, woke Star Trek is becoming, because why do they have all these gender fluid people? Well, because gender fluid people are out there. And by the way, aliens probably don't see sex and gender the same way humans would. That's just how,
Right.
anyway. But it's so odd how some of that stuff can come about. And actually, so my mom, she writes science fiction fantasy stuff, and it's really interesting that she'll talk about how there are, even in a small world like science fiction fantasy, especially if you're talking about writing, it tends to be a pretty small world. You tend to have these factions though, where you have this kind of very open-minded, looking at all of the oddities and really wanting to explore all of these diverse representations. But then you also actually tend to have some very religious folks that like living by certain cultural norms and standards. And it's very
Hmm.
interesting how very different people can be drawn toward the very same thing so passionately.
Yes, absolutely. And what's funny about things like Star Trek and Star Wars and anything dealing with other alien races, it's so funny that someone close minded can even watch that. And it's always funny when it comes up. It's like, ugh. Why is like you'll hear people say things like they're just adding diversity to everything, and I'm like, I'm like,
It's an
Are you
alien, of course.
you're looking at Jabba the Hutt right now and complaining that an Asian person is in Star Wars? Are you kidding me? Like, it's so unbelievable. Like, you literally watched Watto own slaves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now you're just like, ugh, they're adding another black person to Star Wars. Like, this is just ridiculous. Like, what are we doing?
If
right?
anything, we should have looked at it before and said, where did everybody else go? Why is everybody white?
Right. And it was funny because I feel like they recognized it in the first Star Wars. Like, there's the two ladies in Star Wars, Leia and Mon Mothma. Like, those were the two. That was it. That was it. Anymore, and it's like we're not gonna watch it, right? And and so it's so crazy to me that like the level of gatekeeping and negativity. It's something that I would never expect from, honestly, a group when I was growing up was picked on for being a nerd. I remember being picked on for still playing with Transformers when I was a teenager. Like I remember that, and now it's like, oh yeah, Optimus Prime is a badass. Yeah, we went to see it. Like, I remember going to one of the Transformer sequels at like the midnight show or the early showing, and there was a guy there next to me in a tap out shirt, and he was just like huge. He looked like a linebacker, but it was one of those things that was funny to me. I'm like, okay, he's wearing an MMA shirt, and he's just sitting here just as hype as I am to see this movie, and I'm like, things have changed.
Yep. And
this
that's
is good.
Yeah, and that's the beauty. But I think you're also hitting on the fact that with human nature, the us versus them is so enticing. And even if, and sometimes maybe because we know what it's like to be on the outskirts and not to be part of the group.
Yeah.
I think this might have come up in one of the earlier podcasts, but the harder you have to work to get to the in crowd, the more proud you tend to be of it, the more important it is to you. And if you think about it, if everyone is allowed into the in crowd, well, it's not an in group anymore. It's just everybody. And so there can be this weird kind of like push and pull versus for some people, they know what it's like to have been on the outside and they're very open to everyone. But yeah, I mean, human nature is just real weird.
It is. And you're right. It always seems to turn into an us versus them. And I feel like I've never been that person. Like, I might jokingly say something like, oh, you think you're a Transformers fan, but then after that we will proceed to have nothing but fun conversation, and I might slip in a bit of information that I know when I'm with, or here and there, but I've never been that person that's like, this is ridiculous. We can't even talk. How dare you come in here and try and say that you're a real fan, because I'm a real fan, and no one that knows less than me is a real fan.
And I think that the majority of the group tends to be really open. I remember I loved Batman before I read comics, and that was a similar thing as I'm not a true Trekkie kind of thing, where what level means that you're really into something. And I remember having conversations with like you and other people that we know about Batman and superheroes and stuff. And I was just asking questions and here's things that I know from the movies. And then you guys would fill in about the comics. And it was really nice because it kind of played off of each other, where I wanted to know more about it. And you guys were, I think, thrilled to have someone who wanted to hear about it. And so I think that's the majority of people.
Yeah. And it's funny because it's one of those things where it's always a bigger fish type situation. Like, there's always a bigger nerd. And honestly, at San Diego Comic-Con, that's where you're going to find them, right? Because I think about all the different conversations I've had about Batman in the comics. And I remember one day just walking into the convention floor, and Scott Snyder was just sitting there.
Whoa.
He was just sitting there. He was just sitting there. He was talking to some fans and doing some signings. And I went up, I said hey to him real quick, and then I left. I felt bad for even walking up and saying hey, because there were definitely a line of people there to see him. And as I walked past him, I was like, hey, how's it going? I met you at a earlier con in Washington D.C. a few years ago. You're great. Like it was, and that was that. I just kept it moving. We didn't
Yep.
have a conversation or anything, but yeah, you can have all these tons of conversations about how awesome comics are, and all the artists and all the writers and all the actors for whatever you love are right there.
I think that's another message, though, kind of tying to what we're talking about. The more you learn about something, whether it's discipline that you study in school or your job or comics, a comic book character, the more you delve into something, the more you don't know. You know
Yes.
what I mean? Like,
Yes.
yeah, it's the more you go into, you think, oh my goodness, I didn't know this, or I don't know about any of that stuff over there, and the hole just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. There's more you don't know. And just as you said before, there's always a bigger nerd out there. There's always someone who's going to know that stuff that you don't know, or might even know more than you about things, or is better at it. And so that kind of sense of, I think sometimes, and it seems like Comic-Con helps people get over this, but we can sometimes kind of talk ourselves out of what we know or achieve or have become. And so it's nice to have a space where no, it's not about who's the bigger nerd and who knows more about what. We all love this stuff. We're here. We get a chance to all do it together.
Yeah, it's just a big nerd powwow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Big
but I
big nerd gathering.
and one thing I really like that you said is I do think there's more open-minded nerds than
Yeah.
closed-minded ones, because as much issue as I take with gatekeeping fans or sexist fans or closeted racist fans and nerds, I do think for the most part it embraces everything diverse, because Comic-Con is the weird and wonderful.
I like that.
They just embrace that we're insanely nerdy and we're here to prove it, and I'm dressed as my favorite character,
Yes.
and I'm gonna go buy socks with my favorite character on them because you can buy them at this con, and here's
Nice.
someone drawing a picture of my favorite character. Like, it's just about anything nerdy you can think of, it's at San Diego Comic-Con. I mean, there was a booth there selling nerdy booty shorts.
Sure.
Yeah, because the one that comes to mind was there were booty shorts, and on the back it was Pikachu looking through binoculars, and it said, "Let me peek at you."
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and that was just one example, but
Yep.
I would have never thought of something like, oh man, I wonder if there's nerdy booty shorts out there. Like, I would have probably eventually Googled it, but
See, that sounds the exact
yeah.
kind of thing that I would search for. I'm the one looking. I mean, I made my own advent calendar because there wasn't a good nerdy advent calendar like I wanted.
Right.
I searced all over for that, and I was like, dang it. So maybe
And
I
I
should
feel,
have gone to Comic-Con to get one.
and I feel like when it did finally come out, I thought about it and I was like, Amelia's was better. Like, I was
Yeah,
like,
I'm gonna have to post my advent calendar on our social media around Christmas time because I'm very proud of that thing. It turned out well.
it was good. It was really good.
It's a very
Loved it.
interactive thing. It's got a lot of nerd stuff in it, so we'll definitely have to show that. So you were mentioning people dressing up as their favorite characters.
Yes.
Any favorite cosplays that you saw?
Well, first things first. My wife Colleen was she's always loved cosplaying, and she's pregnant right now, like in her third trimester, and she went to San Diego Comic-Con. And one of my favorite cosplays that she did there, she dressed as overweight Thor from Avengers
I love that picture.
Endgame. She had like a full blown beard and the glasses and the wig and the tank top. It was really great. It was really great, and people were absolutely crazy about it. And the funniest thing was, I just remember when you check a bag, they ask you like, do you have any weapons in there? And I was like, there's a plastic axe. Like there's a there's a plastic axe and handle in there. Don't worry, it's not real. But I also thought about, like, what if it was? Like, what if
Mm.
it just charged lightning while we were 35,000 feet in the air? Like,
So I have been outed as a nerd at security at the airport before, actually.
Nice.
Yeah. So just as a quick sidetrack, so my brother's godmother also really loves Star Trek and everything, and so I was coming back home, and I was flying because I was at school where I had to fly, and so I got her an ornament because she really liked a lot of different Star Trek ornaments. And it's early in the morning, super early in the morning. I've got my hoodie on. I'm just trying to get to the plane so I can sleep. I'm going through security. My bag's getting scanned. And the guy turns to me and goes, "Bird of prey?" I was like, "What? Is that a Klingon bird of prey?" I was like, "Oh God, yes, that is a Klingon bird of prey ornament in my bag." He recognized it from scanning my bag. So I found a nerd in the airport at I think 5:30 in the morning.
And that's another thing too. Going through the airports there, getting on certain flights, you could tell who was headed to Comic-Con and who wasn't because you saw people like with their poster tubes
Nice.
and their nerdy backpacks and their themed luggage. Like you could tell, and you would kind of be like, "You headed to Comic-Con?" "Yes, my fifth time." I'm like, "Wow." Like, okay, it's my first time. It's like, yeah, my tickets were free this year because they got canceled the past 2 years because of COVID. And I'm like, oh, cool. But it was one of those things where you could tell they were very passionate. Like, I feel like the majority of conversations, I was the one that had to end it. Like, I was like, so I gotta go.
Yep.
But
So that's the thing, and I know I interrupted. I definitely want to hear about more cosplays. And the overweight Thor by your wife Colleen is awesome.
yes,
But yeah, cosplay is kind of another layer. I mean, not everyone is dressing up as characters, but cosplay is really cool too because people get to put on a persona, kind of act out different characteristics that they might not feel comfortable doing in everyday life. It's just a really cool way to be able to creatively express yourself and be able to express things within yourself that you might not be able to do on a daily basis.
and so previous cons I've been to, honestly, there were a lot more cosplayers
Interesting.
than what I saw at the con. Like, I've been to certain cons before. Like, I went to one in Washington D.C. one time, and I felt like every single person there was dressed up. Like, everybody was there. Same thing
Wow.
with like Raleigh's Comic Con. Everybody's just dressed up. This one, there were a ton of people dressed up, but I feel like because San Diego Comic Con has so many people there,
Mm.
the number of normal dressed people far outweighed the number of people cosplaying. But if I did the math, it was probably still the same number of people
Yeah,
there
yeah.
with costumes on.
Interesting. That is
Yeah.
interesting. Well, and I guess San Diego Comic Con, I mean, some other cons have more of a theme
Yes.
or are more focused and don't have as much of the mainstream movie, TV shtick to it.
Yes. Like, I know that there's one called like D23 that's all Disney that Disney throws, and I don't even know if the public might be invited to that one. And then there's BotCon, which is all Transformers. And so yeah, there's all kinds. There's Animazement, which is of course anime. There's another one, I can't remember what it was called. My friends used to always go to it, but they just played tons of video games. Like, it's all about the
Ah,
video games.
yeah.
But all of those people
Mm-hmm.
are at San Diego Comic Con.
That's so interesting. So it's like the
Yeah,
most eclectic one.
absolutely. Like, there were video game companies there premiering their new video games. Street Fighter 6, which hasn't even come out yet. Capcom had an entire block of the convention center floor just letting people play the new game. The Lego company was there. Hasbro was there. Like, every big name that you can really think of
Yeah.
was there and had a booth on that convention floor. Netflix, Hulu, HBO, like, they were all there just advertising their stuff. So whatever you can think of, anything that's on TV, they were there in some form.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's interesting too, where you have this one that pulls everyone together, but you also have the ones that are more focused or can be smaller and more of, I don't know if intimate is the right word or phrase, but maybe ones that you can you can focus in a bit more too. That's the nice thing about cons, because I think a lot of people, if you don't really know much, you just know San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah.
But there's so many different ones out there.
Yeah, and so you don't. Yeah, for those of you out there wondering, like, if you should go to San Diego Comic Con, it's one of those things I feel like everybody needs to do at least once, like just to see, because I still wasn't prepared for how big it was. I mean, it took up 5 or 6 blocks
Oh, wow.
easily, like outside of the convention center. Like it took
Wow.
up several blocks because there were different buildings where you could go to watch TV shows be premiered. There was a building where you go to prove that you were either vaccinated or tested negative for COVID. So you had to have like a wristband.
Yeah.
And you had to be wearing a mask anytime you were inside or at any of the events. And so it was a lot. From what I hear, people that have gone before, it was still very different from previous years, but it was a lot of fun.
So I have one last question. So based on what you saw, any previews or any hintings of things, any topics that you think might be coming up in the future that would be good for our podcast?
Ooh. So I know in previous episodes we've talked about grief. At Hall H, Marvel's panel there, one of the last things, the last thing that they premiered was the trailer for Black Panther 2. And I mean, people were crying in Hall H. Like, it's definitely going to be one of those that deals with grief. I mean, you see all the main characters there mourning because T'Challa is gone. Chadwick Boseman is gone, and you could just feel the tension in the room, just like, this one hurts, right?
Yeah.
And even the director came out, and all the different actors come out, and so it's real sensory overload because you're mourning the character, but then you see the actors come out, and they're mourning their friend that they lost, and so it's just, it just tugs at your heart because they talk about what an amazing person Chadwick Boseman was, and this movie is to honor him, and it's just really, really heavy stuff. They showed some footage from Black Adam, and one of the things it really delves into is how his child was killed, and he's more or less a villain because of what he's gone through. They showed the trailer for the new Ant-Man, which there were a couple things they showed that they did not release to the public. It was just for the people that were there. They showed the trailer for the new Ant-Man, and it looks like there's going to be kind of a schism between him and his daughter. It looks like they're going to be butting heads, and so
that could be interesting, the parent-child dynamics.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. But we're going to do Batman and Damian before Ant-Man, right? Like, hopefully.
Oh, naturally. Of course.
This is still Bat Therapy, not San Diego Comic-Con anything goes therapy, even though that is what it is. But it's called Bat Therapy for a reason.
We're 75% Batman and Batman related characters, and then 25% we'll just do what we want because, you know, we're going to have fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we can always bring it back to Batman, right?
Of
I'm like, oh yeah, we were talking about Spider-Man Homecoming and Michael Keaton was in it, and guess what? Michael Keaton was also Batman twice. Right? Like I'm gonna always find a way to bring it.
Well, he's gonna be 3 times, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
To bring it back around. There's I'm trying to think what else they showed, because they showed Ant-Man, they showed Black Panther, Marvel Secret Wars is coming. DC did not premiere as much stuff as I wanted them to. Like,
That's
I think
how it seemed.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, their big things were Shazam: Fury of the Gods and Black Adam, and then they in a different panel they talked some more about some of their animated stuff that's coming up.
Okay.
The biggest one I think they repped was the new Green Lantern animated show, which I got a chance to. I met Phil Lamar and got a chance to take a picture with him, so
nice.
that was cool. But yeah, it was. I think there's going to be plenty of stuff down the line to talk about, because they're building towards the multiverse, and the
Yes.
multiverse. We all got hats that were in Hall H. We all got hats for being there. And one thing I'll say, so I went with the YouTube channel I'm with, Team JVS. I went there with them as press. And so when it came to Hall H, we just went through a completely different door, and we just walked straight in and had really good seats for that entire day. But the nerds that go to Comic-Con that really want to see these celebrities, there's true diligence and dedication, because when I arrived at San Diego Comic-Con, there were people already in line waiting to get in for that Saturday. The con started on Wednesday.
Oh, jeez.
They were waiting to get in that Saturday, and there's one night we were just kind of walking around, and I was like, I want to see how far down this line goes. This line stretched well over a mile.
Wow.
Just people with tents and water bottles and lawn chairs just waiting to get into Hall H. And so it was very interesting, because when everybody finally got in there, I think it seats like over 6,000 people in this one room. But when everybody did finally get in, it was like, man, I feel very spoiled, because I was like, I had to wake up at 6:30 this morning to make sure I had a good press seat for Hall H. Meanwhile, there's people that were there. So, like, I salute all of those out there that were like, I'm gonna get in there, and I'm gonna see Paul Rudd, and I'm gonna see Chris Pratt. Which, Guardians 3. That's right. I was trying to think. I'm like, I knew Marvel talked about some other stuff. Guardians 3 it looks like it's gonna be dealing a lot with Rocket Raccoon's.
Oh, like his background.
His backstory, and
nice.
Also Peter Quill dealing with the new Gamora, because he's in love with the old Gamora, but the new Gamora is like, I don't know who you are.
Yep. Yeah.
So
nice.
I think that'll be so. So I think we've got some fun topics to discuss along the way.
That Definitely. Could be interesting with. I mean, clearly it's a different set of circumstances, but could kind of tee into when there's memory loss, or when you have two people with differing memories of what the relationship is and how that can be. That could be an interesting comparison there. Interesting.
Yes. And so I think there's a lot of really fun stuff coming down the line. There's, like I said, it was sensory overload. We saw all of the cast of Guardians of the Galaxy, all of the cast of Ant-Man, the cast of She-Hulk. They just did a little bit of everything. I think She-Hulk is going to be a fun one to talk about too, because I think it is going to touch on a lot of things that I think women have to deal with that men just don't.
I mean, you see that even with the release of things for She-Hulk, kind of that question mark of even what her body looks like in the show.
Yeah, and so I think there's a lot of things coming down the line.
Nice. DC needs to step it up.
Yes, and
come on, DC.
I got a chance to meet a lot of really cool people that were there at the con. So first off, one of the fun ones, I kept running into her and her partner at a lot of things. Julie Perino of the Nerds Awaken podcast.
Cool title.
Right? Isn't that a cool title? But they were so much fun, and they were the happiest people that I might have ever met. Like, like, they were just ecstatic to be there and super nice to everyone, and it was so much fun meeting them and hanging with them at all the different press pits that we went to. I got a chance to hang out a lot, of course, with Team JVS, the channel that I work with. Sam and Lucas, y'all are great. And then the Three Black Geeks.
Ooh, another good name.
Yep, their podcast. Those guys were there, and so it was a lot of fun just getting to hang out with other people that are just deep into all things nerddom. God, and see, this is what I was worried about when I was talking. I'm like, man, I'm just gonna be remembering everything like on the spot here.
Well, how about this? One last thing. What's one last thing you want to share to wrap up our season 1?
One thing that did mean quite a bit to me was getting a chance to see the writer Neil Gaiman. He was there.
Nice.
Promoting Sandman, which is coming up on Netflix really soon, and it looks amazing. I really want to bring that on to talk about because I mean, Sandman's, I think, what, DC Vertigo, right? So
yeah. So it's funny because I don't know anything about Neil Gaiman's comic book experience. I've just read his books, like books.
Yes.
So I need to delve in. I'm definitely interested to see what his comic book realms look like.
And then as much as we talk about like emotion that gets provoked in movies and TV shows, I also got a chance to go meet a whole bunch of film and television composers. There was a panel there called Musical Anatomy of a Superhero, and yes, I got to meet the composer for the up and coming She-Hulk. I got to see Michael Giacchino, who did the score for the new Batman movie. He also did Thor Love and Thunder and Spider-Man No Way Home. Natalie Holt, she did Loki. Christopher Leonard, he does the music for The Boys. Christoph Beck, he's doing the new Shazam and the new Ant-Man movie. There was someone else I can't think of. Oh yes, Naomi. Gosh, I'm sorry for butchering your name. If you hear this, it's Melumad. So Melumad. But she also helped do a lot of the work on Thor, Love and Thunder. But it was really interesting getting to hear from them how much it takes to evoke emotion, because like really like music can change how you feel about a movie.
100%.
It's really, really powerful. I mean, it's just, and so it was really fun getting to chat with them about how they felt when they made certain tracks and how they felt relaying the tone of a situation. And it was just really great getting to listen and hear from them. One of the funniest parts, though, and I know we got to finish up, but one of the
I gave you one and you're getting to 3, but we'll give you this final third.
Right. This is my podcast too. But
we just want to make sure our listeners are still listening. I hope we're interesting.
They love us.
Come on, it's nerd stuff. You gotta love it.
But one of the things that was funny, I got a chance to ask Christoph Beck about after credit scenes, because a lot of the times they film those after credit scenes at the very last minute, like a couple weeks before the movie comes out sometimes. And it was funny because I said, so what do y'all do about composing that? He said it's really frustrating sometimes. He said because they will call him when he's already on another job working another movie. And it's like, hey, we need you to throw a quick 2 minutes worth of music together for us for this end credit scene. And it was really funny getting to listen to him talk about that.
Oh, geez. I can only imagine. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, music is so powerful. That would actually be a really good episode, is, talking about different musical themes and the different movies and shows and how it pulls emotion and stuff.
Yes. Unfortunately, I did not get to see Samuel Jackson on this trip. They did talk about Secret Wars, and Kobe Smulders was there, Maria Hill, but Samuel Jackson was not there. But one day I hope and I pray to at least be in his presence.
So, for our final season 1 mindful nerd moment, I was thinking we could embrace the identity of cosplay, and we could do a mindful nerd moment where we're envisioning ourselves putting on a superhero suit.
Nice.
Yes. So you can choose the suit. I don't care what it is. I don't care whose it is. I don't care if it's a character out there or if it's one you're making up. But what I want you to do is just kind of get a sense of a superhero suit that you would be interested in putting on for this mindful nerd moment as you settle in. So, as usual, sitting in a straight position. You want to, feel balanced, but also not too tense. Your hands lying by your sides or gently in your lap. If you're comfortable with it, it can help to close your eyes to just really take in what you're imagining. But if not, just softening your gaze, not looking at anything in particular in the room. And just taking a few deep breaths just to help you refocus yourself as we go into this mindful nerd moment. So I want you to imagine grabbing your superhero suit and first feeling the material in your hands. Noticing what that feeling is like. And imagine looking at the suit. And as you're feeling the texture of the material, really taking in all the different textures, colors, how the light hits the suit, really taking it in visually and allowing the visual in front of you to become joined with your sense of touch. So you see a texture as you're feeling that texture. Where you see the light, noticing where the temperature of that suit might shift or change, where it might be cooler or warmer. Just really taking in touch, really taking in sight. Now I want you to imagine putting the suit on, however that suit actually goes onto your body. And as you're doing so, notice how your body and your muscles have to move to put on that suit. How you shift your balance, any muscles that tense or release as you move the suit up your body or onto your skin. And also noticing how the suit itself changes and adjusts and moves as you put it on. Where it stretches, where it stiffens, and how it feels against your skin. Notice the smell of the suit. Just taking in whatever smells might come with the materials. And just taking note of anything that those smells might evoke. It might bring about some memory from the past or make you think of something in particular. Or it might be a brand new smell. As you finish putting on the suit, I want you to just imagine standing in the suit and really taking in the feeling that it gives you. Whether it's confidence, strength, agility, whatever it may be, taking a moment as the superhero that you are, really feeling what that suit gives you, and embracing those feelings with a big, deep breath in, and letting that deep breath out. And just take a moment to appreciate your suit and the feelings that it gives you. And now, let's prepare to come out of the suit. And we're going to come back into the podcast. So with one last breath, breathe in the sense of that suit and breathe out as you start to adjust back to your seated position. Paying attention to how you feel now in your own skin and your own clothes. Switching from the superhero suit back to your own Clark Kent that you are. And when you're ready, open your eyes and we'll wrap up the Mindful Nerd moment. So what'd you think? How was your superhero suit?
So this one was a little bit funny for me because
that's okay.
My first thought was if this was the Flash, it would just be like not even a 1 second mindful nerd moment. Same thing like Clark Kent. And so when you said it, I imagine like in Man of Steel when Clark is going through and Jor-El's telling him he's going to be a beacon of hope and all this stuff, and like he sees the suit for the first time. Like I thought about that, and of course I thought about Batman. What's funny is there's never really been an epic suit up moment for Batman. I feel like it's always one of those things where it's like you see something zip, you see a glove, and that's just it. Because he's always on the move. It's like, yeah, whatever, I got a cool suit. Yeah.
Exactly. So think about it. You can have the exact same suit, and you can approach it in two different ways. You can just zip it up, put it on, whatever, I gotta go, it's my suit. Or you can really take the time to appreciate the suit.
Yeah, absolutely. It made me think about, I watched this TV show on Apple TV called For All Mankind.
Mm.
And it's about NASA, but it's set in an alternate universe. But watching them put on their astronaut suits, it takes so long for them to put it on, and I'm like, man, that's dedication when you're just like, all right, for the next few hours I'm gonna have to get into this suit. Same thing with like actors whenever they have to wear a ton of makeup for a character they're playing or something. And so yeah, it was cool suiting up.
Yeah.
It was cool suiting up.
And here's the thing, mindfulness doesn't have to take forever. We slow these things down because we're trying to train our brains to be able to do it.
Right.
But if you're able to shift yourself pretty quick into that mentality, you could put your suit on really quick and be paying attention to it that whole way.
Yes.
It's
Absolutely.
about not taking it for granted. And it helps to slow things down to remind us not to take it for granted, but you can do it quick too.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You can definitely do it fast. I mean, sometimes one of my favorite go-tos that I've learned from this one is still Superman flying around.
Yes.
But like when I really think about it, like I can do it on the fly, and I mean,
Yes,
how many times does he like break the speed of sound? All the time. So you can get this done quick. He's constantly just sonic booming all over the place, being a badass Kryptonian. For some reason, just saying it's the finale, the season 1 finale, is bittersweet, even though we're coming right back.
We're coming right back. There's no summer gap or any of that nonsense like TV shows do.
Right. All of the original cast is coming back.
Exactly. We're not switching us up. Yep. But you're right. It is bittersweet. And just to kind of pause before we completely finish, but thank you so much for those of you who listen to the podcast.
Oh my gosh.
We really appreciate it. We love talking to each other, and we recognize that just because we love it doesn't mean other people do it. It's nice to know that we're talking about things that interest others. And so we really appreciate you all out there.
I cannot thank y'all enough for listening and commenting and chatting with me online about things that you've heard or that you've liked. Please don't stop. I love hearing about who you would like to talk about. I love hearing about how the podcast made you feel. I love hearing when you really liked something. I like hearing when you weren't crazy about something because it sparks conversation. And so I can't thank our Bat Therapy fans out there enough. Please stay tuned. Please keep listening, and please, please, please be mindful and take care of yourself. Thanks for nerding out with us.
I'm clinical psychologist Dr. Amelia Brown. You can find me at Crafting the Mind on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
And I'm comic enthusiast and nerd aficionado Keeden Hopkins. You can find me and my friends' movie reviews and reaction videos at teamjvs.com or on YouTube at teamjvs. For more information on this and other topics, check out our website at bat-therapy.com. To keep current on episodes and other updates, subscribe to our Bat Therapy YouTube channel or follow us on social media. We'll see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.